My name's Connor Murray. I've been in enterprise software sales for 7 years now at a Fortune 100 company. I started as an SDR and I worked my way up to where I am now as an enterprise account executive. And a huge piece of that success was because of cold email. Using the frameworks I'm going to teach you today in this video, I was able to consistently book 3 to 5 meetings or more per week from cold email as an SDR. So in this video, I'm going to be covering first, why email prospecting is so powerful. I don't think people realize how powerful it is. The most common email mistakes to avoid that are preventing people from having success over email. And then I'm going to show you my actual cold email blueprint, the framework I use that you can plug and play to create your own email templates depending on your personas and your value proposition. I'm going to show you too my exact follow-up cadence and how it's designed to come off like you're a real person, that this is important and you're actually trying to get in touch with them. I'm going to show you how you can do this all more efficiently by strategically using the way you create lists and segment your leads. I'm going to teach you the concept of an objection response bank so that you're not starting from scratch every time you get an email objection. You can kind of box the ones that are most common in your responses to those. And then I'm going to cover subject lines too, because this is a question I get asked about a lot. So let's get into it. All right, so what you're looking at here is how I think about cold emailing as a whole. So it might look like a lot, but let me break this down. I do a lot of videos on this channel about cold calling, and I think one of the key inputs to having success over the phone are answers. Like, you need people to answer the phone in order to have a chance at booking the meeting. Over email, that key input is responses. In order to book meetings over email, you need people to respond first. Whether it's good, bad, or in the middle, generally more responses is better. So our whole blueprint and framework is going to be designed around getting as many responses as possible and then looking at ways to increase the odds that those responses are good based on the messaging, who we're targeting, etc., which we're going to cover. But the way I look at it is the funnel or the blueprint starts when you get a response. Then when you get a response over email, there's really 3 possible outcomes, but you need the response first. Either they agree to meet, which is the best case scenario, they make it easy, they resonate with whatever you reached out about, in which case send a calendar invite with a strong agenda attached to it. You might get a hard no, like, hey buddy, take me off your list. That's unavoidable. You're going to get lots of those. Just treat it as part of the game. That's the other outcome, in which case, if it's a real hard no, yeah, you can try and overcome it, but generally I consider that just a hard no. You make note and you move on. Or the most common is it's not a yes or a no. You get some sort of objection, a hesitation, or a question on their end, and they need more context before they agree to a meeting. And some of these, they can frequently sound like, we already have a solution in place. We're already an XYZ customer. I'm not sure I'm the right person to be reaching out to. Maybe reach out to John, our director of IT or something. Take me off your list, please. Not the right time, circle back. Insert common objection. And that's where the concept of an objection handling bank or a response bank, which I'm going to talk about at the end of the video, comes into play. You come prepared for these most common objections. But that's the way I look at it as a whole, to give yourself a visual framework around what we're trying to accomplish with cold email. Get responses, and then the more times we get responses, it's going to fall into one of these 3 funnels. And then how do we convert as many of these responses to meetings as possible? So in this slide, I want to talk about why email prospecting is so powerful. When I was an SDR initially, I think I spent 20 minutes in the early days within my first months as an SDR. I spent 20 minutes teeing up the most perfect email I'd ever written, sent it out, and didn't get a response. And I was like, I just spent 20, 30 minutes on that. I could have made 20 cold calls in that time period. Cold email is a waste of time. So my first 6 months, I barely used cold email, and I basically got to my number by grinding my teeth and just ripping dials every day. And what I didn't realize was how powerful cold email can be if you just figure out how to scale it. So the reason email is powerful is because it's scalable. It shouldn't take you 20 minutes or 30 minutes to write an email. And I'm going to show you how, with my structure, how you can drastically reduce that time. But if you're doing email right, you can simply send more emails than make cold calls. You could be grinding harder than any SDR has ever grinded in their entire life. And an SDR just giving it half effort should be able to send out more emails than cold calls. Now, cold calls I consider higher value. They're higher likely to convert to meetings if you actually know how to cold call. The show rates are higher. The conversions to opportunities are higher. So there's a time and place for both. but it's simply the truth that you can send more emails than you can make cold calls if you're doing email the right way. And as a result, slight improvements in your emails can make a massive impact on your results. This is what I didn't realize when I was a new SDR. Another big pro for cold email is, I get it, cold call is hard to learn. It takes time. If you're still in that process of learning how to cold call, it's difficult to sound confident and credible over the phone. I think that's the hardest piece to overcome to when you learn how to become effective on the phone, it's sounding confident. The good thing about email is there's no tonality to it. So that's a pro and a con, because over the phone, that can be a huge advantage if you have a strong tonality. But if that's something you struggle with right now, words are words. Like, people are going to interpret it however they read it. So you can sound confident and credible. Even if you're brand new SDR, you can take a template you know works within your organization, and whether you have 1 month of experience or 24 months of experience, you can sound confident and credible. So what you're looking at here is a simple spreadsheet where I sort of put an expected value of meetings based on some inputs I left in here. So the way you get this output is simply by taking this number and multiplying it by this, and by this leads to that. So in this first scenario, an SDR, and let's say this is over the course of a week, sends 150 emails. They have a 4% response rate to those emails. 1 out of 25 prospects responds approximately. And then of those responses, 1 out of 5 takes a meeting. On average, this rep can expect to book 1.2 emails or meetings per week over email. In the second scenario, let's say you structure your day a little more efficiently, the way you create lists and segment your leads, which we're going to talk about in this video, and you go from being able to make 150 emails in a business week to 250, which is really not that much. That's an extra 100 emails over 5 business days, basically an extra 20 emails a day. But you go from 150 to 250, you get that response rate up from 4% to 5%. So instead of 1 out of 25 responding, you get 1 out of 20 or so. And then meeting conversion, 20% to 22%. This isn't even something you'd notice on a week by week basis. It's so small, but that's basically a 10% increase in people agreeing to take meetings. Look at the output. Look how much it improves. It's well over 100%. That's about a 150% increase in the total meetings you're booked just by sending 20 extra emails a day, increasing your response rate from 4% to 5%, and increasing your meeting conversion to 20% to 22%. If you want to make your own spreadsheet, it's not hard. You just make these 4, and this output here equals this number times this number times this number. And you can start to play around with the numbers and see how dramatically your expected output can be just by increasing these inputs very, very slightly. This is why I say slight improvements make a huge impact in your results. And for this reason, this is why you should, and why I certainly obsess over the small details with email prospecting, because such small improvements make huge impacts to your results. So when you see me evaluating templates or creating my own, I look for the tiniest little details where, looking at it, you might think, really, is that a big deal? But I'm like, if you're going to be sending thousands of emails over the course of a quarter or a year, a 1% difference can mean an extra 10 or extra 20 meetings over the course of a quarter. And what does that do in terms of opportunities generated and therefore pipeline? So that's why I look at the difference between passive and assumptive language. Any blank statements, like people when they open up their emails with, I hope all is well, I'm like, take that out. It doesn't add any value, and there's a 1% chance they read that and they just loop you in with every other SDR sending these emails. So this is why email is so powerful. It's what I didn't realize when I was new. So then it becomes about, how can we send more emails? When we do that, how can we get more people to respond? And when they respond, how can we get more people to have that response be yes as opposed to no? And a lot of that is the way you overcome objections as well. So on that note, here are some of the most common email mistakes to avoid. So I was an SDR manager for 2 years as well. I saw so many, countless different templates being used, and this is what I boil it down to, the most common mistakes you can avoid. And a lot of this is just eliminating. It's not even adding anything new. It's just taking this stuff out. So one is just simply not sending enough emails, low volume. For me, it changes depending on the territory and where you work, but generally you should be sending 100 emails per day, in my opinion. That includes follow-ups too. Every email is a % chance of a response, so I include follow-ups in that too. But a lot of reps send 20, 30 emails a day, maybe 40, and that's just not enough volume. You need, in my opinion, 100 for the law of large numbers to start kicking in. And a reason people don't send enough is because they spend too much time over personalizing. I think people over index on how effective this is. Like, let me look up, did they get promoted recently? And because of that, that's why it takes 20, 30 minutes to write an email. And a lot of times the value it adds is not justified. And a lot of times it actually decreases the effectiveness, because now a lot of people read that stuff and every SDR is saying, oh, congrats on the recent promotion or recent success. They're trying to personalize, but they're inadvertently just putting themselves in the same bucket as every other SDR. Similar note, messages that are too short and choppy. I keep seeing, I get these emails in my inbox all the time from people who think I'm a decision maker where I work, which I'm just not, but I still look at these emails in curiosity, and they're trying to sell me a CRM system or something. And they're all the same. It's like, hey, Connor, congrats on the recent success. Have you been experiencing troubles with this? What we see in working with customers like XYZ is this. Worth exploring more? And it's like 50 to 100 characters. They all read the same. They're short, choppy, with an interest-based call to action. And I don't think they're as effective as they used to be, if they ever were effective. Another one, cheesy, fluffy, gimmicky language and subject lines. I have some examples I'll touch on below. This is the biggest one. If you take nothing away from this video, passive, optional sounding request to meet. I talk about this a lot in cold calling too. It's the same exact thing in email. If your request sounds optional, it subconsciously doesn't sound as important. You want your language to sound assumptive, like you're expecting this meeting to happen, not asking if they're interested or open to it. Another big one, ineffective and inconsistent follow-ups. No matter how good you make your first email, from my experience, most people don't respond to first initial emails if they're just prospecting emails, because I think, again, it's subconscious. They almost want to see if you're serious or if this is just another prospecting email. About 70%, from my experience, 70% of meetings booked over email come from a follow-up. It's usually by the second or third follow-up. So I'm going to cover follow-ups later in this video, but don't sleep on, just because they don't respond to your initial email, you need to be following up, and you need to be doing it consistently. From my experience, it needs to come within 48 hours. Anything more than that, response rates drop off dramatically. And then, similar to the cheesy, gimmicky language, just not sounding human, sounding like a marketing machine, not just using the exact language from your website, like, we empower businesses too, in this ever-changing landscape, you need to be focused on blank. Language like that, like enhancing stuff. Just look out for buzz language, which I'm going to talk about this below. So language to watch out for. This is some passive, optional sounding language that's gimmicky or makes you sound like a marketer. So I was hoping to set some time. I'd love to. I'd like to set some time. We don't have to. But it'd be great to. I'd love to. Would you be open to? That's passive. If you're interested. How we can act as a resource. That's not strong enough language, in my opinion. No one's looking for resources. They're looking for people who have answers and understand their role. So that's the next one. I'd like to see how we can act as a resource and get a better understanding of your role. No one wants to teach you about your role. You're supposed to know about their role. Do you possibly have time, or if you have time? And then again, ever-changing landscape, streamlined processes, single source of truth, single pane of glass. Watch out for language like that, because it can subconsciously, again, maybe not always make a difference, but 1%, 2% of the time, someone reads streamlined processes and it's just an eye roll because they get so many emails that sound like that. So assumptive replacements, where you can just take your existing email templates, scan for some of this language. This is not an extensive list, but it's meant to give you an idea, and replace it. So instead of, I was hoping to set some time, or would you be open to, if you're interested, I am looking to set some time this week, or let's set some time this week too. Either way, I'm looking to, let me know what date works best, looking forward to getting introduced, get aligned with your priorities in FY25. I think that's a lot stronger than how we can act as a resource, or better understanding of your role. We will be, another example, we will be your main point of contact in these areas going forward. Again, I think that sounds stronger than how we can act as a resource or get a better understanding of your role. So these are minor differences where you can keep your, let's not change the whole template yet. Start by scanning for this language and replace it with assumptive language. You will immediately start getting better response rates, and therefore more chances and opportunities of booking meetings. Remember that diagram in the beginning of the video. More responses is better. That's the key input to booking meetings over email. So on that note, this is an example of a template I've seen coaching reps out there. There's so many different examples of these, but this is an example of a template it's not all bad. There's actually some good pieces to this template, but it's very representative of what I see a lot of reps using out there. So I kind of highlighted the areas in my head that when I read these emails, this is how my brain works. I kind of scan it and I'm like, that's an area where, passive language, red flag, or markety, gimmicky language, not strong or assumptive. That's what I first scan these emails for. So in this one, I hope you're doing well. Again, I think that's a blank statement. You can get rid of it. My name is Connor Murray and I support XYZ University from a financial application standpoint. This includes our latest solution, Markety in my head, ABC Planning. To give some context as to why I'm reaching out, my job here includes being an educational resource to the organizations that I support. Not strong, no one needs an educational resource. It doesn't make this meeting sound important. It makes you sound like a customer service marketing type representative and not a sales development representative. In July, we will be hosting an educational and interactive webinar. I don't even know what to call that, just red flag in my head, showcasing some of the ways we have been able to assist colleges. So that this to me just sounds markety and weak. With the complexities surrounding financial aid, we'll cover everything from funding to enrollment, performance, as well as enabling real-time automation for traditional and new academic offerings. Again, way overbeating this word. These are educational and meant to give you a bit of extra knowledge in your back pocket. Weak. If you are interested, passive, let me know when you may have a 30-minute gap in your schedule. So this isn't important, but if you're interested, when you may have a 30-minute gap, it's just so easy not to respond to this, to chat. I will send over a meeting invite with the Zoom link. Thank you, Connor. Again, this is a real template, and it's very indicative of what I see out there. And to me, overall, like any one of these can kill your email template. Any one of these are little things that can hurt your email template by 1% or 2% chance of response rates. And when added up, it's a really, really big deal. And this is not a template that's going to get a lot of responses, in my opinion. This is the type of template you'll blast out to 1,000 people and get like 5 take me off your lists and the rest won't respond. Now, when I say it's not all bad, I do like this 3-body paragraph format. It is relatively to the point. It's not too short. It gives them some context. So it's not like terrible, but you could really improve it. So on this side, I want to show, let me get my head out of the way here, how you can take the same template. And I'm not saying this is a template I would use. I'm saying just taking this template and replacing it with stronger, more assumptive language. Look at the difference. This, in my opinion, will get a lot more responses, even though it's still not a perfect template. My name is Connor Murray. I support XYX University from a financial application standpoint. Our team will be the main point of contact in this area going forward. So anything related to your financial, accounting, and other back office processes. A little more context there, main point of contact. So I'm taking some of those assumptive language examples from the previous slide and just inserting them here. In July, I'll be hosting a discussion around the ways our team has been specifically working. I think that's better than educational and interactive webinar with colleges and universities on the complexities surrounding financial aid. I'm going to cover areas around funding, enrollment, and performance, as well as opportunities for automation in traditional and new academic offerings. Let me know if you'd like to be a part of that conversation. So trying to elicit a response here. Either way, so whether you're interested in that or not, either way, I'm looking to set some time that's stronger than these are educational and meant to give you a bit of extra knowledge. Next week, and gave them some actual dates for a 20-minute call to introduce my team and get aligned with your priorities going forward. A lot more assumptive, like I'm expecting this to happen, than bit of extra knowledge if you're interested when you may have a 30-minute gap. Please let me know if either of these dates work for you, and I look forward to getting introduced. Thanks in advance, Connor. So just by replacing they basically look the exact same, but just by replacing what I bolded here with stronger, more assumptive language, keeping everything else about the template pretty much the same, this is going to get a lot more responses and will be a lot more effective template. So here is the blueprint. If you're looking to take this for yourself, maybe pause and look at this for a second. This is the type of framework you can implement just by, I bolded what you Based on where you work and your value proposition, I bolded the areas you can fill in to create a template that answers the 3 most important questions, in my opinion. Very similar to cold calling and the value statement framework I talk about. You need to tell the prospect who you are, why you're reaching out, and what you want. 3 bodies of paragraph is my favorite. I like to give them 2 easy options to pull up their calendar, but the first paragraph simply tells them who you are. The second one tells them why you are reaching out to them specifically, which is what priorities or challenges do you solve that are relevant to them and how do you solve them? And then assumptively tell them what you want. I'm looking to set some time for an introduction this week to get aligned with your priorities in FY25. So it can start the same every time. We have yet to be introduced. My name is Connor Murray, and I'm part of the whatever it is, marketing automation, back office financial applications team, HRIS applications team, whatever segment this prospect is, fill in there. And then team here at your company. So whatever your company name is, responsible for supporting their company. Our team will be the main point of contact in this area going forward. So anything related to your process 1, process 2, or process 3. If it's back office financial applications, ERP, financial, and accounting processes. Or you can get more specific than that. This is not supposed to be a hard end all be all you have to use. Maybe you only name 2 processes, but it's a starting point that you can work with, fill it in, see how it looks, and it's going to probably be, in my experience, a lot more effective than a lot of the most common templates I see being used out there. My team specifically supports, and you can name a specific industry if you want. If you know everyone on the list you're emailing is in retail, for example, retail organizations on priorities related to relevant priority 1, relevant priority 2, and relevant priority 3. And our focus is on working with clients to deliver X outcome, Y outcome, and Z outcome. So I'm going to show you how you can actually input this as an example. Again, who you are, why you're reaching out, what you want. In this example, I sell risk management software. So this isn't even something I've particularly done very much, but I'm just showing how you can easily take whatever you sell and your key personas and the value proposition, the priorities and challenges they face, and input them into this framework as a starting point and what it can look like. So we've yet to be introduced. My name is Connor Murray, and I'm part of the risk management team at ABC Company, responsible for supporting their company. My team will be your main point of contact for matters in this area going forward, so anything related to loss prevention, compliance management, and infrastructure security. My team specifically works with retail organizations that should say on priorities related to identifying and assessing supply chain threats and developing risk mitigation strategies to improve overall risk preparedness. We leverage AI to automate redundant risk assessment processes, implement proactive risk controls, and give clients a complete view of their risk analytics. Clients consistently experience strengthened risk controls and improved compliance with regulations. I'm looking to set some time for an introduction this week, as my team will be your main point of contact in this area going forward. Do either of these dates work for you? Tuesday, Wednesday, thanks in advance, Connor. So one thing I added here too, clients consistently experience strengthened risk controls and improved compliance with regulations. You can take that out if you want. That's optional. I think this most important, and this is why you're reaching out, is what priorities you focus on. So identifying and assessing supply chain threats, etc., and how you solve them. We leverage AI to automate redundant risk assessment processes, blah, blah, blah. And then I just say be careful with this one. The last line, you can deliver what outcomes clients or customers tend to experience. The reason I say be careful is because a lot of reps take this too far and they start sounding like a marketer. See here how we helped XYZ, how we helped Bank of America reduce risk-related incidents by 37% or something. And it's just stuff that's not that believable or not that relevant to this prospect. And they're like, really, you know nothing about my business and you're making claims like this. So I just say be careful with that line, but use this as a framework to get started. You can be confident knowing I've tested this out with reps across SMB, mid-market, upmarket, across a variety of different verticals and segments. This framework, this 3-body paragraph, who you are, why you're reaching out, what you want, with 2 options where they can pull up the calendar, it works. It gets responses. There's ways you can tweak it and make it better depending on your specific situation, but you can be confident knowing this is a framework that works. Some people like to point out, is this a little on the longer side? Yes, it is longer than the typical short, choppy email that seems to be predominant these days with an interest-based call to action. And for a reason, I want to stand out and I want to make it sound like I'm a real person reaching out to them. Even though we are going to be doing this at scale, these are designed to sound targeted at scale. We could send this to pretty much anyone in risk management, the risk management space in retail, and this will probably sound like a relevant template to them. But a little longer signals that you actually put in some effort and sound like you want to get in touch with them. And remember, they're very likely not going to respond to the first email no matter what you send. So our follow-ups are going to be designed to snap them awake and get their attention and go down and read the first email very closely. And then there's going to be a little bit more context for them because we put a little extra length into the email to make it relevant to them. So on that note, when it comes to follow-ups, here are examples of real follow-ups that I use to this day. There's many different variations, but I'll start down here in the bottom right. What we're actually trying to accomplish with these follow-ups is that we're a real person. We want to come off as a real person trying to get in contact with them, signaling that this is important, and we're signaling that we're serious about meeting with them. So the tone of these follow-ups is essentially saying, hey, I'm a real person. You're not on a cadence here. Even though they may very well be on a cadence, we're trying to signal, I'm a real person trying to get in contact with you. Please respond to my email. Whether it's a yes or no, that's okay. Just give me your thoughts on this. Another side note, morning works best for emails in general and follow-ups. If you can send it when it's between 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. their time, there's a lot more of a likely chance that they'll respond because their day hasn't fully started. Oftentimes they're not in meetings yet and they have a little extra time to read an email. But that's the goal with these follow-ups. So I generally say don't wait any more than 48 hours before sending a follow-up, ideally within 24 to 48. Or the response rates drop off drastically. Again, I mentioned how I get these emails all the time. I'll get an intro email on Monday of the first day of the week. The first follow-up will come the next Monday. The next follow-up will come the next Monday after that. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm just on a cadence. I'll probably get one or two more of these. And if I just don't respond to them, they'll eventually go away. But when you're responding like within 24 hours or within 48 hours, and you do so repeatedly, and you've left a lot of context in your email, they're like, oh, whoa, this person's serious about getting in touch with me. I better respond to them one way or another, whether it's a yes or a no. So some examples of this. Hi, John. Did you get a chance to review my note below? Look forward to speaking. Connor. Please give me your thoughts on this. I've booked more meetings off this line than any other email or call script I've ever developed. It just says, please give me your thoughts on this. No signature. They see that in their preview, in the email preview, and they're like, whoa, what? And their fight or flight mode kicks in a little bit. And they scroll down. They see that, oh, they already followed up and I didn't respond. What did they say in that first email? And that's when they go read that first email very carefully. Another version of this by follow-up 3, John, just a question mark. Again, it's another pattern interrupt. And these aren't super complicated. The mistake a lot of reps make is they write these follow-ups that are almost brand new emails in themselves. And what it inadvertently does is it lowers your value. It tells them, oh, you didn't respond to my first email? Okay, let's see if you're interested in this one. And they'll link to some article, see how X customer did this or achieved this outcome. And the prospect's like, oh, they're just trying to throw different angles at me until I respond. That's why I prefer to just be direct and say, give me your thoughts on what I said down below. Do the first email right, and then your follow-up should tell them to go read the first email. And then this one's optional. I like to end off, because I was so pushy with the first 3, with sort of a more breakup email where you're still being kind of assumptive, like, let me know if this is a conversation we should postpone for a later date, perhaps early February. So it's like, all right, we'll still have the conversation, but like maybe later down the line. Kindly, Connor. Now, a way to do this, you can pause and look at it. Just to keep it simple, the cadence I use is an every other day cadence. Remember, I like to send them within 48 hours. So if I email a group of people on Monday, I'll email a group of different people on Tuesday morning. Wednesday morning, the first thing I do, I'll take this first follow-up, copy and paste it, and send it to everyone in group A. Now, if you can automate this stuff, great. Then you can do even more. I still do this stuff manually, and what I do is on Wednesday morning, I click in my sent box, I scroll down to the first email I sent Monday, and I just send every single person I emailed a follow-up on group A until I get to Tuesday. And then on Thursday morning, I wake up and do the same thing for the people I emailed on Tuesday. Friday, now it's please give me your thoughts day. I send it to everyone on group A and B. This is just an example, but generally I like to do every other day. Whatever day it is, I scroll down to the emails I sent 2 days ago and figure out what's the next step in the cadence. If all of them 2 days ago have, did you get a chance to review my note below? That means I need to send them this one. Or if they all received this one 2 days ago, that means I need to send this one, and so on. And this is a way to just keep it easy for yourself. I don't like these cadences that overcomplicate things where it's like call day 1, email day 2, call day 3 and leave a voicemail this time. Day 4, send a LinkedIn connection but no message yet. Then send a message the next day over LinkedIn. I think that stuff, it inadvertently overcomplicates things and actually causes reps to have more trouble with their cadences and the amount of volume they can get out from both an email and a call standpoint. So I just like to keep it simple. With email, it's generally email a group of people and then follow up with them 3 or 4 times every other day. And that way they get about 4 emails from me in 7 to 8 business days. They know you're there when you've done that. And in my opinion, rather than going the distance, I see these like 15 touch point cadences over email. If you hit them hard with 4 or 5 emails in a 7 or 8 day span, and ideally a few calls mixed in between, and they still don't respond, you're better off just going on to a new fresh list that hasn't been contacted rather than trying to go the distance to like 15 or 20 touch points. The amount of time you were going to spend doing that, you might as well just redirect to a new list, and then you can re-follow up and retarget lists with very similar cadences quicker than a lot of people realize. Generally, I like to wait 4 weeks on the early end, generally like 6 to 8 weeks, and you can retarget lists with the same cadence because a lot of times it's just a timing thing. A lot of times that initial email you sent with the priorities and challenges you named, maybe it wasn't relevant to them at the time, but then in between those 6 to 8 weeks, they had an internal meeting where something came up around risk management in this case, and loss prevention. And then the next time you send that email, they're like, oh, this is convenient, I'll take a meeting with them. So a lot of times it's just a timing thing. So we want to design these cadences to be easy to follow. And I think every other day is a very easy and proven effective way to do that. So now when it comes to list building and lead segmentation, so this is how you can be more efficient and create massive lists for yourself that all have homogeneous characteristics. So you can create one template, and you know if I send this to 100 people, this is how you can go from spending 20, 30 minutes on an email to designing one template that will be targeted for 100 people or however many it is on your list, and it helps you move fast at a higher quality. So in this example, if you sell financial management software, some of the titles that will be relevant to you are CFOs, VPs of FP&A, controllers, financial analysts, director of financial systems, etc. All these personas are very similar, but they have different priorities and challenges they care about. Like VPs of FP&A care about more strategic planning, budget forecasting, scenario modeling, where controllers are more on the accounting side. Well, they'll care more about transaction matching, the financial close process, account reconciliations. So you can segment by persona, you can segment by top industries. So let's say your top industries are financial services, healthcare, hospitality. You can segment by sub-industries. So within financial services, you have insurance, banking, wealth management. Within healthcare, you have med device, biotech, hospitals, etc. And if it's relevant, if your company positions itself differently based on revenue or employee count, that's another way you can do it. So you can make lists of VPs of FP&A that work in the financial services industry, or VPs of FP&A that work in the insurance space, controllers that work in banking, financial analysts that work at hospitals, or controllers that work in insurance with an employee count less than 300. You can really get as granular as you want, but this is how we can make a ton of lists, batch them together so that we can make one template that's highly targeted for all of these people. And so once we're doing this, let's get my head out of the way here. Once we are doing this effectively, and we're strategically creating lists, creating templates that are targeted for those lists, implementing a nice, easy to follow A, B, every other day cadence with assumptive language and assumptive follow-ups, we're going to start getting a lot of responses. Remember that chart at the beginning of the video. When you get a response, it's either a yes, it's a hard no, or most often it's somewhere in the middle where it's either an objection or a hesitation they have that you need to overcome in order to book the meeting. That's the beauty with that cadence and those the assumptive emails with the assumptive follow-ups, is it's designed to get a lot of responses. And then the next step is, how do we get good at handling these responses? So a big mistake a lot of reps make, and I certainly made this this took me a long time to figure out to start doing, is every time I'd get an objection, it'd almost be like a deep breath. Now I got to figure out how to type an email from scratch on how to effectively respond to this. What I realized over time is I could bucket a lot of these objections into a very similar category. So in this example, it wouldn't make sense for us to meet. We're already an XYZ customer. So a lot of times those follow-ups are designed to get responses, and now the prospect's like, I don't want to meet, but I have to give them a reason as to why it doesn't make sense to meet. Yeah, we're already an XYZ customer. We don't have the time or bandwidth right now. Circle back down the line, something like that. What I say is, put in the effort once. Think of a good, effective response that generally works for we already work with an XYZ customer. So every time you get that, you can just go to your objection handling bank, which you can either keep in like OneNote, a Word document, your Notes app, wherever you like to keep them. So you get this, you just open up your objection response bank and you go to we already work with an XYZ competitor template, and it gives you a good starting point. Sometimes it can work out of the box ready to go, or you can make slight edits depending on what you know about the specific prospect, what they said, where they work, and you can tweak it to make it a little more targeted and effective. But this is a really good way to be more efficient and save yourself a lot of time. So why this is important is you don't have to respond to every email objection from scratch. You can save the effective responses to the most common objections, so you have a starting point each time. And this is something you can keep working on throughout the year. The first objection response bank I ever made looked very different than the one that I use to this day. You can continue building this throughout the year and make slight improvements as you continue getting encountering more of these situations. But this is where a lot of your meetings over email will be booked. I would say 70% of your emails come from either a follow-up or handling an objection related to a response. And remember that the key input to booking meetings over email is responses. Generally, more responses is better. So similar to cold calls, my technique is to sell time, sell the meeting. So in this case, we already work with an XYZ customer. Notice how my response isn't trying to sell them on why they should consider us over that competitor, because we're not going to do that over a cold email. If I can't sell a meeting, if I can't sell a 15-minute meeting, I am certainly not going to convince them over email that they should move off of whatever solution they're currently using in their business over to my solution. Very unlikely. So in this case, hi Nam, thank you for the insight. The idea here is just for us to get introduced and be a resource and point of contact here at ABC. We work with a lot of XYZ customers, so if there's ever a fit, we can move forward. In this case, XYZ is whatever solution they said they're on. We work with a lot of XYZ customers, so if there's ever a fit, we can move forward. But it would at least make sense for us to get aligned for the year. A brief 15-minute call would be greatly appreciated. Do either of those days work for you? Thanks in advance, Connor. Many different variations on how you can respond to this, but I basically acknowledged what they told me. I said, yeah, we work with XYZ customers all the time. This isn't about replacing them. This is about how we can be a resource and get aligned with your priorities going forward. So start building these out. You can work with your peers, work with your manager. You can make a really big document, and it just saves you so much time and reduces a lot of stress, because now when you get these responses, you can just go into your bank, get something that's probably 80% ready to go out of the box, and then rather than coming up with something from scratch, you can just tweak it from there. And again, we're not trying to book 80% of these. That's not going to be possible, but slight improvements in your ability to overcome these objections make massive differences, because you're going to get so many of these types of responses throughout the year. And this is one of the best ways to increase your odds from my experience. And then last topic, subject lines. So I think this is something that people just generally overthink. My general advice is to just keep it simple and don't screw yourself over. That's the goal here. We just don't want to do or say something in our subject line that's just going to cause them to think we're a marketer or a salesperson. You don't want that thought to cross their mind. So don't try too hard. You'll sound like a marketer. Don't overthink it. So what not to use? Again, cheesy, gimmicky marketing type subject lines like looking to improve marketing efficiencies or don't miss another dollar of revenue. I see stuff like that and I just cringe because your email could be perfect. It could be flawless. You could follow the same framework I use, but if you're using subject lines like this, 3 ideas to improve your marketing ROI. 1, this makes it harder to send more emails because a lot of times you're trying to personalize this, and if you're spending too much time on your subject lines, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So some examples, ideally I say keep it to 4 words or less, but you might think, really, Connor? Like this is what you got? I'm telling you, yes, these are fine. They get opened and they're not going to screw yourself over. So it could be your name, their name, introduction, or your company name, their company name, introduction. Or if you really want to try and get targeted one way, but you really have to be certain for this to work, is your name, their name, or your company, their company, and then name some specific priority you know they care about. So if I'm reaching out to an accountant about accounting software and I know transaction matching is important to them, you could do Connor James transaction matching. But for simplicity, these first 2 are totally fine, and then we want to write assumptive emails, consistently follow up, show we're a real person, be assumptive, we're expecting this meeting to happen, and stand out from the typical SDR. And you don't need to overcomplicate your subject lines. Just make it clear what the email's about. Don't get too fancy and come off like a real person reaching out. So in summary, going back to this initial framework I covered, this is all designed to get as many responses as we possibly can. We want to send out more emails. We want to get more responses to those emails, and we want more of those responses to convert to yeses, whether they're right out of the gate on the first response or by overcoming an objection. So the more responses we get, the more chances we have that people agree to meetings, or we get more of these. And the goal is to elicit why that framework is so valuable in the assumptive, to the point follow-up saying, go read my first email, is because a lot of times in that example earlier, we already are an XYZ customer. If you weren't assumptive, they just wouldn't have told you that and they just wouldn't have responded, and you therefore wouldn't have had a chance to overcome it. The beauty of this is we get more responses, even if they are objections. The objections are good. We want to elicit as many of those as possible from people who otherwise wouldn't have responded. And if we can just convert a fraction of those to meetings, we can dramatically improve our results. So that's what I got for you today. This is something that's worked very well for myself over the course of 7 years. It's worked for hundreds of reps I've coached it to. Let it serve as a starting point, and then you can tailor it and make it more specific to the typical personas you reach out to. You can A/B test different templates throughout the year and see which ones are getting more responses. Generally, that's what you want to look out for, the templates that are getting the most responses, the templates and the follow-ups that are getting the most responses, and more responses will eventually lead to good meetings. So if this was helpful, check out the links in the pinned comment below if you want more hands-on guidance on actually implementing this in your own role and implementing the cadence and these follow-up techniques. But if you got value, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.